Welcome. This is Dr. Owen Anderson, and we're looking at ethics. What do we study in ethics? And we've talked about stages in our development from being a pre-skeptic, where we think we know, but we don't know, to being a skeptic, where we realize we don't know, to being a post-skeptic, where we're able to actually have knowledge or understanding. And knowledge is a true belief that you can show is true, in contrast to an opinion where you have a belief and you think the belief is true, but you can't show it. So we thought about some of the goals. Like how do we assess our goals? Goals in taking a college class, for example. And we could say, well, I take a college class to earn a higher education degree, to get a good job, to get more money. And then it could be specific goals related to our job, like if we're a lawyer. And we want to help people have a better quality of life. But what is it that makes a life of better or worse quality? So that gets us now into the very questions ethics studies. Ethics studies the question, what ought I to do? And we're faced with that question every day, right? I mean, when you woke up, as soon as you start making choices, you're doing this. So ethics assumes choice. As soon as you have to choose, do I have a cup of coffee or brush my teeth first? You're making a choice. So from the very first thing you do when you wake up. And choice assumes value. Choice assumes value. If you value two things equally, then you can't choose between them. To choose between them, you would have to value one more than the other. So you wake up and you have to decide, do I brush my teeth first or have coffee first? And you say, well, if I brush my teeth first and I have coffee, I'll have coffee breath. So I'll drink coffee, then I'll brush my teeth. So I don't have coffee breath. So your value comes out of between the two. I value not having coffee breath. And values assume a highest value. This is called the good. And that's why I asked you earlier about the word better. Better is a form of good. It means more good, but we don't say the phrase more good, more better. We don't say that either. We say better. What is the highest value? And so ultimately, ethics is asking for this. Ethics is seeking rational justification to answer the question, what is the good? So let's think about the parts of that answer there. Seeking rational justification, in contrast to merely personal opinion. You don't need to take a class to learn personal opinions. Like, even if all you wanted out of this class was to learn about a lot of other people's opinions, you could do that just by going to the public library and checking out some books and reading those books. And then you just have opinions, which we had listed up here. So we don't want just opinions. What we want is the truth. And we get the truth by being able to give rational justification. And that's also what I had built into the answer of knowledge. You can show it's true. And that's what we're doing in the academy. We're pursuing being able to give rational justification to various questions that different disciplines study. And the specific question that ethics is concerned about is this: what is good? What is the good? How can we know what it is? The highest value. Now, someone could say a couple of responses to that. Let's think about these. Response here. There is no highest value, only an unending line of values. So there's no final or highest value, just an unending series of values expanding into infinity. Well, if there is an infinite list, an infinite series of values, then no value is closer to the highest value than any other. Each is infinitely far. which means there are no differences in values. At any point in an infinite series, you're still infinitely far from the highest value. You can even say between the numbers, you're still infinitely far from the next number because you have an infinite series of points between each number. So to make sense of value, there has to be a highest value, a final value. Now, someone could also give a response. I'm going to call this, introduce a word to you now. Epistemology, theory of knowledge. In philosophy, the study of knowledge is called epistemology. And that's a term that you know in our semester. So someone could say this: we can't know the good. That's a different problem than this first one. See how those are different, right? So the second one is saying there is a good, there is a highest value. We just can't know what it is. There are only opinions. Well, that goes back up here. That's the skeptic stage, right? So we have to see if we can make progress or if we get stuck there. Now, the good is the end in itself, what is sought for its own sake and not for the sake of something else. So that's a very clear definition of what is good. We're going to be coming back to that over and over this semester. What is sought for its own sake and not for the sake of something else? And you might begin to formulate some attempted hypotheses of what that is. I'll give some common examples of what it isn't. Money. We don't want money for its own sake. We want money because we use it to get other things. For example, I might want money to be able to have security. So you don't even want to spend it. You just want lots of money in the bank for security. And you want security so you can do other things and not always be worried about money. So you want money to be able to do those other things. Well, what are those things? What is worth doing? And you can imagine that not every answer is accurate. Like imagine someone, I want money so I have more time for my celebrity-shaped potato chip hobby. I collect potato chips that look like celebrities. And it takes a lot of time. You can imagine how many bags I have to go through and sorting them out and making sure they are preserved, not broken. So I need a lot of time for that. So I need money, so I have time, so I can do my celebrity-shaped potato chip hobby. And again, someone could say, yeah, hey, whatever floats your boat, whatever you want to do. And that's back up there again to the skeptic stage, right? We don't know. Maybe the potato chip hobby is good. We don't know. Or might say this way, it's good for you. Whatever you think is good is good. In philosophy, that's called man is the measure of all things. But of course, we don't accept that answer anywhere in life. Whatever I think is healthy doesn't follow that it is healthy. If I think eating gallons of ice cream a day and nothing else is healthy, that doesn't make it healthy for me. It's still unhealthy, and I'll have consequences for doing that. And the same thing is here true. Just because I think something's good doesn't make it good. It's not as if my mind has the magical power of changing reality just because of what I think. Reality is still what it is, no matter how hard I try to make it different just by thinking about it. So there are some things that we seek as an end. There are some things we seek as an end and others that are a means to the end. So money is a means, for example, not the end in itself. The good is based on human nature. The good for a human is what we're asking. And I don't even have to repeat that because it's built into the question, I hope. Not the good for a tree or the good for a computer, the good for a human. So in order to know what is good, we need to know what is it to be a human. What is human nature? What distinguishes humans from non-humans? And so we'll be talking about that. I'll open that up for discussion. What is it that distinguishes humans from non-humans? I mentioned a tree. How are humans different than a tree? And you might mostly give physical explanations. Well, we're not planted up to our waist. We can move around. So they could give examples of things that still move around, like an animal. How are we different than animals then? What distinguishes us from those? Or a computer, a well-designed computer that can do math faster than humans can do math and can play chess better than humans play chess. Well, what distinguishes humans from that? So this semester we'll be looking at many different theories of human nature, because those theories of human nature then tell us what the person thinks the good is. It's clear. Well, let me see here. Okay. Yeah, some of you are saying thinking. Thinking is what distinguishes us from animals. Now, and especially critical thinking and the ability to reason. And I think we'd see that very, very quickly, right? Animals have intuitions and instincts, but they aren't thinking critically where you can ask them questions. And it isn't just a matter of language. Like, well, the animals haven't learned a language yet. That's because they aren't using reason. I mean, that would be the first thing you would do, is you would try to figure out if you were held in someone's house and just given food twice a day, you'd try to figure out their language to say, hey, I don't want to be here. Or maybe animals like it. So you'd say, hey, thanks for the food twice a day. I really like that one brand you get. But animals don't do that. It's not that they can't, but they try and they can't. Is that it's not even, so to speak, on their mind as an issue to do, to communicate. You can imagine cartoon animals who do, right? Like Scooby-Doo kind of knows English, but he mispronounces a lot of the words, and you give him a break because maybe, like, I guess the dog's tongue can't produce certain sounds. I don't know what's going on with Scooby-Doo. So yeah, why can't animals do that? So yeah, we're going to get closer when we start to think that way about, yeah, what is reason? We're going to spend time on that question. What exactly is reason? It doesn't mean reasoning, which is like problem solving, because you can do lots of tests that show how animals problem solve, and computers can problem solve. Reasoning is different than that. So what distinguishes us? And that's also what gives us human dignity. We object if we are treated like an animal. That's actually an insult. To call someone an animal, various insulting words like that, to call them an animal is an insult, because we're not. We have human dignity, and we're distinct from the animals, and we object to being treated like animals. So that's giving a pretty strong hint to you. You actually have enough right now, enough information to figure out what is it that is good for a human. And I like to see how many of you can be putting that together as we're going through the semester. What I don't want to do is say, here's the good. That would give you some information and you could repeat it on the test, but that wouldn't actually help you get to stage 3 up here. What I'm trying to help you do is learn the methods needed to figure out for yourself what is the good. Now I'm going to talk here about the 3 main concepts in ethics. So we've already gone over the good, the end in itself. Next is virtue. Virtue is a means to the good. It's not an end in itself. You have virtues to help you get to this other thing, the good. So you can start to list some of the different kinds of virtues. Let me look at the chat box here. All right. So let's think about some different kinds of virtues. There are moral virtues. Maybe that's the one that comes to mind most, right? Patience, courage, temperance. Have you heard of faith, hope, love? So think about that. When someone says it's all about love, or it's all love, well, it depends what you mean by love. Love is not the good. Love is a means to the good. Specifically, love is when you seek the good for another, which means, by implication, if you don't know what is good, you can't seek the good for anyone. See that? So you might say, I love you. What that really means, I enjoy being around you. I have a good time when we're hanging out. But that's not love. That's still self-centered, right? I like being around you. You make me feel good. To love another would require you know what is good for them. And that's one of the questions I'm going to ask you very early in class. Do you know what is good? That's the question you're supposed to leave with today thinking about. Here you are, you're an adult. You've had plenty of time. During your adulthood, your adolescence, you're growing into adulthood. Did you ever come to find out what is good? And if so, show me. Or are you at the pre-skeptic stage? You think you know, but you don't know. Or if you say, yeah, I don't know, that doesn't get you out of it, because the question is, how did you get this far in life and you still don't know what is good? And are we going to set you loose on the world, so to speak, not knowing what is good? You're going to go out there and start making choices as an adult and you don't know what the good is? What if you're causing harm to people? So that's an important question. This is like, shouldn't this be like the first class everyone takes in college? You better figure out what is good. You should already come to college. Maybe that should be like just have one college admission question. What is the good? And you have to explain that to get admitted to college. Would that be a good idea? Because otherwise you'll say something like, well, I'm going to college to go, I want to become a engineer to make more money so I can retire early to play more golf. Well, you haven't figured out what is good yet. And I picked engineer off the top of my head randomly. I'm not picking on that major at all. I could have picked any major. An accountant, a philosopher. I want to be a philosopher because they make so much money and they get to retire early. No, that didn't turn out to work out that way at all. So moral virtues. Now, a lot of people might not like the moral virtues. They like the moral vices. A vice is the opposite of a virtue. It's what takes you away from virtue. You might say, I don't want virtue. I want vice. And you could have entire shows about vice. Lots of shows are about vice and kind of glorify it and make it seem exciting. Temperance. Do you know what temperance is even? Have you ever heard that word? I don't know that college students are inclined towards temperance. Is college when you're supposed to be not temperate, intemperance? And it's more exciting. That's where, so in other words, they're saying that, I'm going to come back to this word, life. That's where life is at. You have to live life to the fullest and have excitement. And virtues are boring. Yeah, so temperance is like taking things in moderation or even not doing them. So it's used, for example, in respect to alcohol. Temperance, you're able to have self-control and not drink alcohol because you're at a stage of life where you're supposed to be studying and paying attention. And alcohol is for the opposite. Alcohol is to dull your mind and make you not be able to think. And the reason why you want to dull your mind is because life is full of suffering and you can't take it and you want to escape. So you turn to alcohol, and then alcohol doesn't do it anymore. So you turn to something more powerful than that. So the vices lead you down to there's nothing good in life. I'm doing vices to escape life. The virtues lead you to life. I'm going to put this up here, in fact, using that word, life and death. Clearly, this does not mean physical only. Although in this case, that could, right? You could ruin your liver by the time you're 25 and you physically die from that. But here I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the good life. And the opposite of the good life is a dead life. So you could be physically alive, but your life is dead. And a lot of people feel that, don't they? A lot of people feel that way. Their life is empty, not of any value. They suffer. And because of that, they'll say, I'm depressed and I need help. And if they don't reach out to a doctor, they might reach out to other things. And that's where temperance comes in. But the sense is life is empty. I don't have anything good in my life. And that's terrible. No one should be at that point. But the vices, I was trying to illustrate how the vices lead to that sense of death. They lead to emptiness. And they're kind of self-reinforcing. You're told, hey, try getting drunk. It's a lot of fun. And then it turns into, I need to get drunk because I feel so bad about life because I've been getting drunk so much. And see, it's self-reinforcing. And the drugs are like that. So the virtues and life, the moral virtues, and vices, I was talking about that. The vices are usually painted as exciting and fun. And you're told the vices, they're the ones that lead to life. If you just tried this, you'd have such an exciting life. And we'll come back to the vices later, but they tend to come in a packet. I was talking about alcohol because we went over temperance, and that's usually referencing alcohol. But one of the more common ones is lust. And the various ways in which lust manifests itself. And fulfilling those desires with the belief that if you just do this, it makes you feel good and you'll have an exciting life. And trying to reshape society even around fulfilling individual lusts. And you get to determine whatever lust you want, that's good for you, and you should live that way. So the vices, moral virtues, and the vices that come with them, and what they result in, the consequences in people's lives can be devastating. And then they feel that sense that my life is empty. And that's what we're studying in this class. How will we get out of that? I don't want anybody to feel like they have an empty life. Also in virtues, there are moral virtues. There are also instrumental virtues. Money, a house, a car, etc. This is not, neither one of these lists is meant to be exhaustive. Those are examples. I could put that up there if that helps. Example. So we don't want money for the sake of money. We don't want a house for the sake of a house or a car. Imagine that. Some people say that. I've had students say that. Why do you want to go to college? To get a better job. Why do you want to get a better job? To get more money. Why do you want to get more money? So I can buy a really neat car. Well, why do you want a really neat car? So I can drive to work. And why are you going to work? To get money. And why did you want the money? To get a car, to drive to work, to get money, to buy a car. Like, it's just a circle, right? So we don't want a car for its own sake. We want a car because it gets us places safely and in style. It's okay to be in style. What kind of car do you think a philosopher drives? Do philosophers have style?
I was 9 minutes late, but
A house is the same way, right? You don't want a house for the sake of having a house.
the ASU Zoom because it's always overloaded because everyone's getting
You
on.
want a house for
So
having a place to live. Now someone's unmuted.
yeah, he just sent us an alternate link, and I saw the announcement. I'm like, oh hey, look at that! I guess I have a
If you're
class right now.
unmuted, let me see if it shows
I
me.
hopped on.
I might have to toggle back to the other screen.
Yep, I do have another class after this. I wrote out my schedule. I already
You're
I sent
unmuted.
my work schedule, and I texted my manager saying
There he is.
I
Got him. All right. Sometimes it happens on accident, but make sure you stay muted unless you have a question. But right now, what's doing best, I have up this page. The best thing is to post a question or a comment in the group chat. I have that actively in front of me. So if you do have a question, you can say, hey, I have a question on the chat. So instrumental virtues. And then there are also natural virtues. Talents of various kinds, they're called. So you think about that, right? People are born with different natural virtues. There's nothing you can do about it. No matter how hard I would have trained day in and day out from infancy, I never would have played the way LeBron plays. Didn't have those set of talents. wasn't given those natural virtues. And sometimes these are connected, right? The instrumental virtues follow from some natural talents, some natural virtues. And we can begin to be envious of others who have certain virtues that lead to more money. And it can make us frustrated. The natural virtues that lead to being a philosopher don't lead to getting more money. And I could become jealous about that and mad and say, well, I wanted more money so I could buy a better car. You guys should, in the chat, you can tell me what kind of car you think a philosopher drives. Maybe you think I already have a great car. I'll give you a hint. You can't say Tesla for the obvious reason they're too expensive. Yeah, that's pretty close. Corolla. So natural virtues, and you can get jealous of each other. How much of culture right now is motivated by envy of our neighbor? Honda Accord is pretty close. That's a step up from Corolla, right? Corolla is the entry-level Toyota, like the Civic for Honda. So yeah, you might want to bump it down to Civic. Right, there you go. Not Lambo. Unless it's like a kit car. Maybe I had an old Civic, like I had an 86 Civic, and I put a shell on it. So you'll see me cruising down the street, and so you'll do a double take. Wait, is that a Anderson in a Lamborghini? And no, that's just a shell he put on an 86 Civic. And it is true when someone said Civics last forever, I picked 86 Civic because that's one I had that got over 400,000 miles. I don't have it anymore. But everything else fell apart around it. Like everything in the car besides the engine and the transmission was just falling apart because those were so well made. Yeah, Volkswagen and Volvo are also high on the list for a philosophy professor. Definitely possibilities. So natural virtues, talents, and society right now is motivated by this. You can be mad at other people's talents. And there's two parts to talents. There's the fact that you're born with them. I think LeBron James said he doesn't even have to work out. Now, obviously, he did do a lot of training as well. That's the second part. Developing your talents. And that often involves others, like parents. And so someone might have talents and they were born in a situation where they weren't developed by their parents. They didn't have coaches to help them. So we can look at those situations and we can say, yeah, it's really frustrating. And I wish I had those talents. If just I had those talents, I would be famous and everyone would be looking at memes of me and giving me money. And that begins to get back into the vices, because one of the vices is envy, and envy of our neighbor. We only envy our neighbor when we think our neighbor has something that is good and we don't have it. If we knew what is good, and usually it's things like money, fame, influence, power, and my neighbor has those and I don't have them, I'm really jealous of that. If we knew what is good, what is truly good, we wouldn't be tempted to be jealous because I have what is good. I don't have money, but I have what is good. The third main concept in ethics is happiness. This is the effect of possessing what you believe is good. Consider the difference between happiness and lasting happiness. So happiness is the effect of possessing what you believe is good. Whenever you get what you think is good, you'll be happy, right? You can imagine you have a birthday and people give you presents. And it's exciting. You're happy. You got, I always wanted this. I can't believe you got this for me. This is great. Now, if my birthday happens during the semester, I hope I'm going to get some nice presents from you guys. No, I can't accept presents. Just kidding. But you're happy. I always wanted this. And then within a month, maybe less, you're not happy with it anymore, right? It wore out. So you thought it was good, but it wasn't good. And so you didn't have lasting happiness. The only way to have lasting happiness is to actually get what is good. So yeah, that's in response to the chat. Yeah, that would be lasting happiness, enjoying how you live. And the only way to enjoy how you live is by having what is good. So to have happiness, we have to have the good. And that's why that's the first question. The question of ethics is not how can I be happy? Because what makes you happy might be evil, might not be good. but then it won't be lasting happiness. You'll only be happy temporarily, and you'll have to do something else. So the first question of ethics is not how to be happy, because in making someone happy, you could be making them less good. The question is, what is the good so we can have lasting happiness? And how do I achieve the good? What is a good for a human? And as I said earlier, that will require us to know, well, what is a human? And that's what I'm going to have you think about between now and next class. You should already know what the good is. So by next class, you should be able to come in and tell me what it is. You lived this long. What is our highest good? I sometimes say it that way. You don't need to. You can just say the good. What is our highest good? And that's the one of the assignments from the first day of any ethics class. You should know what is good.